A biblical prophecy comes true in today's news. In the Torah portion this week, we are promised, Hein am levadad yishkon, behold, a nation lives alone, uvagoyim lo yitchashav, and will not be counted amongst the nations of the world. This prophecy was recited 3,250 years ago. Watch how it comes to be fulfilled in the whole of the United Nations, right here with the chief anti-Semite, Francesca Albanese, in charge of the Israel file.
Israel is responsible for one of the cruelest genocides in modern history. At the same time, since October 2023, the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange has soared by 213% in US dollars, amassing 225.7 billion US dollars in market gains, including 67.8 billion in the last month alone. One people enriched, one people erased. Member states must impose a full arms embargo on Israel, suspend all trade agreements and investment relations.
The League of Arab States appreciates the Special Rapporteur for her bold and courageous report.
Anti-Semites are those who support the genocidal government.
Why does the genocide continue? Because it is profitable, says the report. The method used by US and European companies used to finance Hitler continues to be used today.
The attacks against Gaza is a genocidal war.
This regime understands no language but the language of force, not the language of law, nor the voice of civilized nations.
And I now call the United Nations Watch.
Mr. President, is today's report balanced? Israel is accused of genocide 68 times. Now, on October 7th, the world saw Hamas start a war by invading Israel, firing thousands of rockets, massacring 1,200 people, including families and little children in their homes. Hamas pledged to do it again. Israel has been fighting a just war against a terrorist army, which cynically embeds itself among civilians. Ms. Albanese, war is not genocide. But in your report, there's no war at all. It's only about Israel. We ask, why does your report never mention once the October 7th invasion and massacre, or even the word Hamas? Why does your report never once mention Hezbollah on October 8th? Joining Hamas's war, they began firing thousands of missiles at Israel. Why does your report never once mention the Islamic Republic of Iran, which armed and trained its proxies and orchestrated the attacks, which itself fired hundreds of missiles at Israel? They openly call for genocide against the Israeli people. Why didn't you find reason to mention them once? Distinguished delegates, this report is an inversion. Silence on aggressors openly pursuing genocide and demonization for a democracy, defending its people from a multi-front war. Ms. Albanese, do you now understand why a Swiss university canceled your panel this week for lack of balance? Mr. President, on April 1st, you released the report of the UN investigation, which found that the rapporteur's trip in Australia was funded by external groups. Ms. Albanese, will you release the documentation? Who funded you?
We will continue then with the next speaker.
Shameless bias in the distinguished halls of the United Nations. It's almost impossible to grasp, to think that in 2025, the nation, the leaders of the civilized world, can be speaking like this, demonizing Israel for retrieving her hostages, for protecting her civilians. The bias is just unthinkable. But yet we know we're strengthened and emboldened by the prophecy in this week's Torah portion. Behold, a nation stands alone, not counted amongst the nations. It's like we don't have a right to exist, and we have to suffer the blows just because. No other nation would be held to such an impossible double standard. Though we don't necessarily understand or appreciate this prophecy, at least we know that it's by divine design. God has told us that he's going to be testing us, forcing us to place our allegiance and our loyalties with him, because we will not be able to find peace and security, to find serenity and calm amongst the nations of the world who refuse to give us the basic right to simply exist in our own homeland. But the prophecy continues, where the Torah promises that the Jewish people will be like the sands of the earth. What that means is, Maimonides explains to us almost 900 years ago, that this is not a promise of multitude as much as it is a promise of aptitude. It doesn't mean, explains Maimonides, that the Jewish people will be as numerous as the sands of the earth, because we're not. What it means is that we will have the nature, the aptitude, the qualities of the sands of the earth. You see, the sands of the earth are tread upon by all. Everybody stands upon the sands of the earth. In much the same way, God was telling the Jewish people, our forefather Jacob, that his descendants would be tread upon, would be persecuted, abused, and violated by all the nations of the world. Yet just like the sands, which ultimately bury all those who tread upon her, so too will the Jewish people outlive all of their enemies and bury all of their nemesis. Those who bless you will be blessed, says the Torah this week, and those who curse you will be cursed. Those who have the courage to stand with Israel will prevail, and those who defy the word of God, who choose to condemn, to vilify, and to criticize the Jewish people, will be lost into the sands of time like all the other anti-Semites of Jewish history. Now is the time to lean in our faith, to find strength in our Father in heaven, not to allow fear to take the place of faith, to know that everything is by divine design. Let's not lose hope. Now is the promise of the ancient prophecy.